Anthony in Virginia. You're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Just fine. How are you?
Mixed bag.
Good. Yeah. When I called in, I said I wanted to talk about areas where atheism breaks down, but I've been talking with some atheists online about the problem of moral evil. I didn't know if y'all wanted to go in that direction or just stick to the original topic,
Sure
which you
call,
think
bud.
be more
Well,
interesting.
I saw your original topic, and I'm curious because atheism is the state of not being convinced that a God exists. How does that break down?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I feel like that there are implications logically of a God not existing, and
That's not the position. That's not the atheist position. I just described it. Atheism is the position of not being convinced that a God exists. How does that break down? It is not the assertion that no God exists.
Right. So if you're not convinced that a God exists, then that means to me logically that you think everything you observe can be explained without reference to God or any God, correct?
No.
Okay. So wouldn't that, all right, I'm just asking questions. Wouldn't that mean that you see something that seems to be more explicable with reference to God? How am I,
No.
where's my logic failing there?
There are things that we don't have an explanation for. The time to think that they require a God is when it's been demonstrated that a God exists and is a suitable explanation for it, and not a moment before. But merely being unconvinced that a God exists does not mean that you think God is necessary for something.
Yeah, the assertions you were making implied that we have eliminated the possibility. When I have neither eliminated the possibility or I wouldn't say entertain the possibility, I've not been shown possibility in either direction for a God. So there's no elimination or assertion of a possibility of God in any answer for me.
But
Okay,
let's
well,
assume, let's assume,
Go ahead.
let's assume that my position is there are no gods, and you say that breaks down.
Okay, so
Okay,
there's three
I've
areas.
all I
where-
wanted to do, hang on. All I wanted to do is clarify at the outset that when you say atheism breaks down, atheism at its minimum is merely not being convinced. That doesn't break down. It doesn't have any implications. It doesn't have any baggage it carries. Strong atheism, the hard atheist position of there are no gods, if you want to argue that that breaks down at some point, go for it.
That'd be good.
I don't know. I feel like if you have a worldview that says I'm not convinced there's a God or gods, and there are things that you think, well, okay, let's just go with the all right. So I think that there are areas where God becomes logically necessary. How about that?
Sure, give me one, and how you know.
Okay, so the origin of the universe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to. It seems to me like atheism gets to a point where you have to logically assume that the universe came from nothing, like absolutely nothing.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Atheism in that particular description is the rejection of God. It's not the rejection of everything, but the universe, our local presentation of the universe, we have no way to explore it at any point earlier than the Planck time. And so for now, we are barred from exploring that or determining what sort of origin it might have, or if it had an origin. If it's not the case that it always existed in some form or another and changed. We just don't know.
Yeah, it is noticeable, though, that amongst the proposed, the hypotheses that are out there, and when they talk about all kinds of stuff, string theory, multiverse, or as you're learning about things that we do understand in physics, you read a book like Something from Nothing from Lawrence Krauss, that notably the scientific hypotheses which never say God would be a part of it pretty well across the board all have some sort of element of some sort of eternal element, some sort of thing that always was. That isn't really lacking. So if anything, while we don't know what the answer is, there is an interesting tendency among science without an invocation of God to suggest something was probably eternal in some form.
Okay, so when I was growing up and we were learning about the Big Bang Theory, and again, this may just be the popular presentation of it, but I remember them saying that the matter exploded from nothing.
No, exploded from
Nope.
no one ever said that, or whoever did was wrong. The singularity has not been presented as nothing. And in fact, in the Big Bang Theory, the singularity is possibly one of those eternal elements.
Okay, so are we going to acknowledge that the matter that exists in this universe has to be eternally existent? It has to have always existed in some
No,
form.
because I don't know. I don't know
No.
that that's the case.
We don't know. We
Okay.
just don't know that it hasn't.
So, all right. Well, let's play with that. So, if we don't know, that means there's a possibility we're entertaining where the matter in the universe didn't exist, and then somehow it started to exist.
If by entertain we go, that's something we'd like to test for, and for sure, we don't actually know whether it is even possible that all of the matter didn't exist or that it always existed. We haven't established possibility either.
Okay, so if the matter in the universe didn't always exist, what mechanism would generate matter from nothing?
Why
So
would
I
that be
feel
a
like we're gonna-
question we would answer when we don't know whether or not? You're basically sitting and going, okay, what if of the myriad of answers that could be, but we don't know, what if we pick this one? What then would be the mechanism that until we prove that one, we haven't even studied and there wouldn't currently be scientific theory for? Anthony, I got too annoyed last week, and I've taken my blood pressure medication at the right time this week, and I'm not going to let it happen like it did last week. But you are here trying to essentially defend a sort of deistic proposition with this assertion of simply this is a sexier God of the gaps argument, and that is the entirety of what you are doing. I wonder, are you a deist or are you a Christian or something else?
I believe in a God that is purposefully interacts in this conscious, aware of creation, and isn't just like the kind of deistic God that just starts things and just lets it go.
And
But
do you associate that
actually-
God with any other religious tradition, or is it a sort of
Yeah,
this is yours?
I actually do think that I think Jesus is like a prophet of that God. Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
So for
So
Christianity,
what evidence? Go ahead.
you believe the best proof of your God has nothing to do with the God presented in the Bible, who does miracles, who do these incredible things, who is capable apparently of doing miracles when cameras aren't around. You don't believe that it is the evidence for Jesus, the historical evidence. You believe that the best evidence for God is that there are places, there are questions about the universe that either are answered and you don't even know they're answered because you're not a physicist or whatever, or are unanswered, and that the answer to that question seems so big and so conceivably unanswerable, therefore insert God, and that gets you all the way to the Jerusalem mythology.
Well, yeah, I don't think that the Bible proves God. I think that that God stands on its own, irrespective of any religious system or institution. So I think the best
Sure.
arguments for God are based in logic and rational thought, empiricism, and things like that. So yeah, I don't.
Okay, so give an argument for God. Give an
What's
argument
that?
for God because you came in and suggested that atheism falls apart, but everything about your thing, atheism falls apart, misunderstood atheism and cosmology. So what's the argument for God? specifically an
I think-
interactive God, because you not only did you get to Jesus, but right before that you said you believe that there's a God that interacts with and has thoughts about its creation. So what's the argument for that?
I think when you think about how the universe and matter and all of it, how it could have logically come into existence or whether it always existed, I think it reaches a point where, first of all the matter and energy has to be eternally existent. It can't have
Okay, you don't
come
know
from
what
nothing.
argument is. So clearly you don't know what an argument is, because at no point in the history of the world has anyone said, give me an argument for, and the argument began with, I think when you think about it, it could logically, that's not an argument.
Right. Especially this,
All right,
you're
so-
advocating for common sense physics, which is absurd.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, the laws of
loads of-
physics have to be. Go ahead.
There's so many
Can you hear me?
counterintuitive things in the world that we discover that a common sense misunderstanding of physics is not going to be good as an argument for the existence of God.
Well, I think it does, because it seems to me that the laws
Well,
of
of course you
physics
do.
the laws of physics could be other than what they are. Like we have constants, we have physical constants, like the gravitational constant.
You have
and
no
there's
reason to think that anything could be. Here, let me ask this. Do you think a second grader's understanding of physics is superior to Neil deGrasse Tyson's?
No.
Then why are you arguing that a common misunderstood understanding of physics is sufficient to demonstrate that a God exists? Because if you have, wouldn't a better understanding, wouldn't a better understanding of physics than a second grader, if there was a second grade physics argument for God, then wouldn't that also convince Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Perhaps. Well, I guess
Perhaps,
I'm just trying
yet he's not convinced, is he?
Well, whether people are convinced or not doesn't really establish truth to me.
I agree with you. Did I say anything at all about establishing truth once in this entire fucking show?
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. So why would you respond about addressing truth? Why can't you respond to what I'm saying? If you think that a second grader's misunderstanding of physics is sufficient to demonstrate that a God exists, and are you saying that there are arguments that can demonstrate God, but there's still no good reason to think they're true?
Well, what I was going for with with what I was trying to say with the matter is that the universe could be a different way. So
How
I don't know that.
fine-tuning argument.
So what I'm saying is,
How do you know?
seems to
How,
be
wait,
this-
wait,
this
wait,
is
wait.
a
How do you know the
specific-
universe could be a different way?
Because when we measure certain physical laws, as we call them, like gravity, the electromagnetic forces, the nuclear forces, what we find is that these things are governed by what seem to be constant.
Okay, wait, Anthony, real quick before you proceed, because I think I have to test you like I did last week. What question did I just ask you?
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
do you know the universe could be could be any other way? You said that you're talking about the constants, and I think what you just asked, I asked was, what makes you think the universe was fine-tuned? And I didn't ask that. I asked, how do you know the universe could be any other way than it is, that those constants could change?
I don't.
Exactly. There goes the fine-tuning
But-
argument.
But we can kind of theoretically speculate about what the universe might look like if the constants were different.
Sure, but we don't know whether that is possible to
And
actually
we could
be
spend
the
the rest of the show. We could spend the rest of the show arguing if Thor could beat up Hulk, but that would be a waste of fucking time.
It
Unless,
just seems to me that if you modify the constants, you get a different universe.
but
it's-
why?
Yes.
But why?
So what?
Exactly. You're completely correct. If the constants were different, the universe would be different. But what I asked was, how do you know there is any option for the constants to be different, that the universe could have been any other way?
We don't. Like, there's no way
Right.
to know that.
So how many
But
examples of universes where we exist, for example, do you know of?
just one.
How many examples have you confirmed of universes that exist that we don't exist in, that humans don't exist in?
None.
How could we possibly observe or test for a universe that humans don't exist in outside of our own universe?
Yeah, we can't.
Exactly. So all we know is that we are here. So clearly we are in a universe that supports human life. Whether or not other universes could exist, by the way, I'm not saying we may never answer that question. I don't know. For all I know, multiverse travel is possible. For all I know, that's a stupid thing to say because multiverses are impossible. I don't know. But when I go, I don't know, I don't then go, so which person here who says they do know because of deep conviction, because of faith, am I going to associate my belief in or my answer with? That's what the difference between us is, Anthony, because you have gone from, I don't see a way that there couldn't be a God because you think laws of physics contradict it, when I don't know which law of physics you would invoke to say that before the Big Bang, any law of physics would apply. So I don't know which one you would invoke, but then you get from, I feel there must be, because of this deep incredulity, to the Jerusalem one.
Yeah, I haven't tried to establish a link between, my argument for God and my particular religion. But
I know.
I guess
I'm not trying to criticize you for that.
My argument is basically this, that not only does the matter have to exist, but it has to be designed in such a way that it interacts with other particles and certain universal relations in a way that in a specific way.
And when Anthony, Anthony, let's say I agree with that. When does that law start?
Yeah, exactly.
No. I'm asking
that. I would think it'd have to be eternal. It can't have just started at some point.
The singularity violates the laws of physics because it isn't held by our universe's laws of physics. As far as we can tell, the moment of the Big Bang is when all of these things you're saying are limiters begin. So now we're in a universe where matter isn't destroyed or isn't it can only change. It's never destroyed or created. But prior to that, if the concept of prior to that makes any sense when there wouldn't even have been time, we have no answers for.
Yeah, that's kind of why I don't believe in the Big Bang, because of this problem where you have to get to a point where the current laws of physics don't apply to material objects that seem to be governed immutably by.
Wow. Not believing in the Big Bang that's a big one.
Okay. So I have two huge things. One, you're saying you don't accept Big Bang cosmology, but you do accept magic because your understanding of physics is that it's just too convenient?
Well, I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't
call
it magic. But
you are going to reject all of the best findings of science and the best evidence from the best minds about the origin of the universe. You're going to reject all of that because you think there's an implication that can only be solved by appealing to a God.
Well, yeah, but okay, there's two separate things going on there.
All I needed was a yeah, because I said all I needed was a yeah, because I have to get to this other thing. You literally said, and I typed it down word for word, not only does the matter have to exist, but it has to be designed in such a way that it can interact with other particles. Why use the word designed there? Wouldn't it be more accurate to say the matter needed to exist and have the properties that result in the uniformity of physics that we perceive?
That could be one way of looking at it, yeah.
Yeah, but when you use the word designed, don't things that are designed require a designer?
I think yes, that's correct.
So wouldn't that
But
be you smuggling the very concept in?
we have to. I don't. I think that it needs to be. It more or less follows because
Okay.
when you have matter,
No. Here's my problem, Anthony. When
All
some
right,
Here's my problem,
go
Anthony.
ahead.
When somebody says it more or less follows, it either fucking follows or it don't. You either have a logical argument where one thing follows directly from the premises or it doesn't. You don't, we're not engaging in fuzziness here.
Okay, I think it has to follow because a lot of people
What
just
has to
focus
follow?
on how. I think that the God designer needs to be there because a lot of people focus when they're talking about origins and the Big Bang. They just focus on how matter got there, or if it always was there, or how it existed in the singularity. But they don't talk about how the laws that govern matter are a certain way.
No. Anthony, there are no laws that govern matter. There are no laws that govern matter. Physics is not prescriptive. It's not like there's a speed limit written for life for light in a vacuum and it must follow that. Physics is descriptive of matter. And so when you say people focus on the matter and they ignore the laws that govern it, no, they focus on the matter and then they describe the laws as how that matter interacts with other matter. There is no prescriptive physics law. It is 100% descriptive. Matter is what matters, and energy.
Well, how do you think that? Like, okay, you mentioned the speed of light. Like seems to be fixed in a vacuum. It's fixed speed in a vacuum. So we can
Yes.
conceive of it being different than what it is. So have scientists explained why light
Anthony,
travels?
Anthony, we don't have to conceive of it being different than it is. We can measure it. We know the maximum speed that light can travel, and we know that light travels at different speeds in different medium, and we can measure it.
Right. So I guess my question is, do scientists have an explanation for why the speed of light is exactly what it is in a vacuum?
Let's imagine for a second that scientists don't currently have an explanation for it. Your question is wrong and malformed because that's what it is. It is descriptive. You don't get to presume that it could be some other way. It is descriptive. But even if we thought that there was a reason and we didn't know it, how would that be relevant to an argument for God? Because our knowledge or lack of knowledge about something does not mean that you get to stick God in.
Well, let's think about conceivably if you could change the speed of light, then that means that it was.
Oh my God! No, Anthony, I'm done. I'm so absolutely done and bored with you ignoring the facts of physics, the basics of physics, and going, yeah, but if we could do this, I don't give a fuck about your hypotheticals when you don't even understand the physics.
Anthony, is something possible if we can just conceive of it?
No.
Correct. So why is any of this relevant? We have no idea whether or not it is possible that the constant of the speed of light could be different. By the way, as we're talking about constants, it's weird that you said you don't believe in the Big Bang, but you defended this position of constants. When I wanted to know what the number was because I thought it was only 5 or 6. There's actually dozens of constants that relate directly to and are part of the proofs of the Big Bang. That the Big Bang happened isn't a hypothesis, it's a theory. You can look at the Big Bang. And you can also just play the universe in reverse. Do you expect the constant, which is the formula, what would it have been? The Planck collaboration constant of the formula of the expansion of the universe?
No.
You don't accept a thing that there is measured proof of, that we can look out and measure the rate of expansion, and have done multiple times, starting in the 90s, where scientists were shocked to find out, because originally the idea was the Big Bang will eventually lead to a big crunch. They thought the rate of expansion would be slowing down, and have since then found out it's actually speeding up, and then discovered the source for that speed. Then they've gone back and shot fucking telescopes into space and have actually looked back through time, which is what you do when you look, and found that the cosmic radiation is where you would expect it, consistent with that. Like a thing that has been proved to be a literal fact. You're sitting there and saying, I don't accept the constant, which is the formula for the expansion of the universe, but the constants of the universe is my defense of why God exists. Reconcile that for me, please, Anthony.
Well, I do remember about a year ago, they put that new telescope out there, and I don't remember its name. I think it's called
James
the James Webb telescope.
Yep.
Yeah. And when it started taking pictures of what they consider to be, the extreme edges of not the edges of the universe, but as far as out as it could look, it didn't match the predictions about what they had originally thought with how the Big Bang works and things like that. There was a big argument.
Wow, what a fucking shitty summary of what you just said. Because what they did was they looked out, and much like many things, were looking for specific answers. So like when they were measuring the Higgs boson, they had multiple things, multiple hypotheses, where it was, if it is this mass, that's more consistent with this theory. If it's this mass, it's this consistent with this theory. And that one was fun because two of the main propositions for the universe, it fell like cleanly in the middle of. Literally the same thing happening with James Webb, where they were going, we're going to look out and measure, and we think we're going to find this here. However, there could be this here. And the specific thing you are talking about is the way Christians will take a news article where it goes, scientists very surprised to find this thing, and rewrite that as scientists realized they were wrong about the Big Bang, when in fact the subsequent information we have found from the James Webb telescope is some of the most beautiful and clear images of shit like background radiation, and of the very things which prove you don't know shit about physics, because the support for the Big Bang Theory has only expanded since the James Webb telescope, not retreated. What an absurd fucking thing you would say and call in and say with confidence. Good Lord.
I'd like to try something.
All right.
Anthony, let's ignore everything we've said. Let's ignore everything that we've said and everything that you've said. Just as an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this so that it is most conducive to actually getting somewhere. If we went back in time to where we didn't have today's understanding of physics, and you were saying, and you were using some of these classical arguments for a God as a first cause, etc. Do you think that should be more compelling at that time in the past than it is today? Or do you think it's more compelling today than it would have been then? Or do you think it's equally compelling, irrespective of our knowledge of science?
I think that the argument for God is more compelling based on things we've discovered since, the Enlightenment period of science and exploration and things like that. Some ideas about God have been disproven. Yeah.
So you think these arguments are more compelling in the light of science? If that's the case, then why is it that the people who understand this the best tend to be less religious by far than the general public?
I think it's because they haven't thought through the philosophical. They believe that because our knowledge of the universe has expanded so greatly, and we haven't, found, a guy, sitting behind a booth to programming it all, that they've eliminated the possibility of God. But I think it's flawed philosophy, because it's like saying you've explored every inch of a car and you haven't found a designer in the car, and so there's no designer.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Anthony, for the absolute most telling cartoon dismissal of rationality ever. You think that the greatest thinkers who built cosmology, the greatest thinkers who built physics, didn't bother to spend any time thinking about or talking about God, and that they just decided that because we know so much and haven't actually found a dude, that they've just dismissed God. You have constructed the most flammable straw man in the history of flammable straw men in order to dismiss the fact, the undeniable fact, that both belief in God diminishes among the people who understand science the best, and that belief in God is on decline in the general public, not because people have decided, well, if we haven't found God by now, it must not be there. What a kindergarten cartoonish straw man of reality that allows you to dismiss the findings of science. Do you think there's a conspiracy amongst scientists to hide good evidence for God?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for demonstrating that you're a conspiracy theorist. That's exactly what I thought. What evidence do you have that there's a conspiracy amongst the elite scientists to hide evidence for God?
I want to make a quick programming note since you said it. Anthony, I don't know how this call is going to end. I imagine it'll be soon since we've been here for 32 minutes. Tomorrow on Skep Talk, Dr. Aaron Adair, who is a physicist who moonlights as a scholar for Christianity. I was going to say Christian scholar, but that it sort of implies he is himself a Christian, which he is not.
Yeah.
Call him and tell him your ideas about the hidden evidence. Call him, tell him your ideas about the constants. Call him and tell him about how you think it is merely that because he doesn't see a man in the clouds, that's why he eliminated the possibility of God. Somebody who actually has advanced knowledge and has written books on the topics that you are invoking for proof, but then also saying you don't believe in when is convenient. Call and put up these arguments with somebody who actually has that advanced level knowledge. I look forward to not only you calling, because surely your confidence and bravery won't only be with the two of us who are not scientists. I look forward to the endlessly entertaining clip that it's going to result in that I will personally watch dozens of times.
All right. Well, I would love to have a conversation. I know he was on last week too with Forrest.
No, Dr. Adair was not on last week with Forrest.
Okay, I'm wrong. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know why I thought that. But
Austin Archer was on last with Forrest.
Oh, okay, my bad. I'm sorry. But let me just give a closing statement. I just want to
wait real quick. Do you believe in evolution?
Actually, I think that's where the conspiracy is the greatest.
Great, because also he will be joined by evolutionary biologist Erica from Gutsick Gibbon. So seriously, call them. No need for a closing statement today. Save it for your introductory statement tomorrow. I'll give you like a liner. Matt, do you have any questions for him before he departs?
No, I'm good.
All right, go ahead. I'm going to give you 15 seconds for your wrap up and save the rest for tomorrow.
All right, I want people to think about not just where the matter came from, but why does it behave the way it does? Where do the physical laws come from? Even if you get matter, they have to behave according to certain fixed principles and what we would call laws. So
yeah, great.
How did that happen? Scientists can't answer that. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Anthony, for demonstrating.
You're a fucking liar. You're a liar, Anthony. When you end your thing with scientists can't answer that.
Can't and haven't are quite different.
The fact that you don't understand the physics and that maybe scientists have not yet explained something is not the same as scientists can't explain something. And it's very important for the audience to realize and recognize that what's just happened here ignores what I already said, that these laws are not prescriptive, but descriptive. So Anthony doesn't listen, doesn't argue honestly, and is desperate to try to paint science as if science fails to understand something, while he actively, repeatedly dismisses the science and the scientific evidence that would confirm that he's full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was what I was going to say at the end was thank you for proving you didn't actually listen to the other side of the conversation. And we were extremely generous with letting you
How long
divert.
was that?
Oh, 35 minutes or something? Yeah. I should have asked that question. What question did I just ask you? I should have asked it like 6 more times during that call, at least.
It's bizarre to me. I mean, granted, I didn't get my birthday wish yet of let's have somebody who's actually willing to actually answer the question that's asked. Anthony can't even remember the question that's asked because he's only waiting for his turn to speak. And he demonstrated it by, even though we answered his things and addressed him and gave him a number to call, he's got to get a last word in where he lies about science.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, executive producer of The Line, and I only became a woodworker for the puns. That's not important. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so on our Patreon or as a channel member, and you can actually support specific shows and specific hosts in special tiers on those. Check those options out. Also, you can leave a super thanks and get a little highlighted deal. But if all else fails, you can always you can subscribe and leave a comment. Now, here are some suggestions because I don't care about the algorithm. I am the algorithm. Bye.